All right, let's talk about all that AI magic that's completely taking over our social media feeds. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify exactly how those wild AI animations get made. So, yeah, let's get into it and break down how this whole thing actually works. You've seen them everywhere, right? The AI yearbook trend? Or those photos that suddenly start talking and singing? Or even those animations where two people are hugging who've never even been in the same room. So how on earth does one single picture transform into a moving, stylized video in just a few seconds? Well, here's the secret. They're not being created one by one. Nope. Instead, engineers build a single, really powerful system, an AI template that literally millions of users can then use for their own photos over and over again. It's actually a super clever piece of engineering. So, what goes into one of these templates? Well, it all breaks down into three core components. Let's take a look at what they are. Every single effect you use has these three parts working together behind the scenes. First, you've got the AI model. That's the brains of the operation. Then there's the template logic, which is kind of like a director's script. And finally, the user interface, which is really just the button you tap on in the app. So the first brain it needs is for face detection. Before any of the cool animation can happen, the AI has to find the face. It uses these powerful models, like Google's Media Pipe, to map out hundreds of key points. The corners of your eyes, the tip of your nose, the curve of your mouth. It basically creates this super detailed map of the face. Next up, you have the motion model, and this is where the action happens. Models with names like Sad Talker or Animate Diff, they take that static photo and a pre-made motion file to make the person in the picture smile or blink or even talk. It's pretty much like being a puppeteer for a still image. And the third type of AI brain, this one is all about style. This is where diffusion models, like the famous Stable Diffusion that creates incredible art from just text, this is where they come in. They can totally transform your photo, making you look like a Pixar character or an anime hero or a classic cartoon. This is the artistic powerhouse of the whole system. And this right here is such a key distinction to get. The AI model is the raw intelligence, right? It's the brain doing the heavy lifting. But the template is the experience. It's the script that says, okay, first apply the smile animation for 2 seconds, then zoom the camera in, then add this trending song and make the final video 5 seconds long. So the model is the actor, but the template is the director calling all the shots. Okay, but how do developers actually build these things from the ground up? Let's walk through the process of cooking up a brand new viral effect. It all starts with choosing the right brain for the job. A model like Sad Talker if you want talking animations. Then, they code what's called a pipeline, which is just a fancy word for a step-by-step recipe for the AI to follow. And finally, they wrap this whole process into an API, which is like creating a simple order window so any app can easily just request an animation. And this AI hug effect is a perfect way to see how it works. So you upload 2 photos. The system's first job is to find the faces and figure out the body poses in each picture. Then the template script, the director, applies a pre-recorded hug animation to those poses. And boom, the system generates the finished video. It's a perfect example of that pipeline in action. Now, building one animation is one thing, but how in the world do you make it work for millions of people all at once without the whole thing just crashing? This is where the infrastructure becomes so important. Okay, let's use a simple analogy to make sense of this. Think of the app itself, TikTok or Instagram, as the restaurant. It's the storefront, the place you walk into and decide what you feel like ordering. So that API we mentioned earlier, that's your waiter. When you press the button to apply an effect, the API grabs your photo, that's your order, and rushes it back to the kitchen to be prepared. And the kitchen, well, that's the powerful GPU servers. These are just massive, super high-powered computers running somewhere in the cloud. This is where the AI model actually cooks your photo, running all the complex calculations to generate the animation. Before the waiter, the API brings it right back to your phone. But, an effect doesn't just appear for everyone overnight. It follows this really careful rollout process. It starts with internal testing by engineers to hunt for bugs. Then it's released to a small group of users, maybe 10,000 or so, to get feedback and check for issues. Only after it's proven to be stable and popular does it get a global deployment for everyone to use. So this brings us to the big question. Why are we seeing this explosion of AI animation right now? I mean, the ideas aren't totally new, but the technology to make it fast and easy for everyone to use, that is. It's really the perfect storm of 3 key breakthroughs.
First, diffusion models like Stable Diffusion got incredibly good and produced super high-quality results. Second, GPUs got so fast that the processing time, they call it inference, dropped like a rock. And third, deploying these huge AI models in the cloud became way easier and more scalable.
The result is just this massive, massive leap in speed. What used to take minutes, sometimes even hours, to render on a powerful computer can now be done in just a few seconds on a cloud server and sent right back to your phone. That speed, that's what makes the whole experience feel like magic. So now that we've kind of demystified the whole process, you can see it's less about magic and more about a really clever, repeatable system. And you know what that means? It means this power isn't just for the big tech companies anymore. Ultimately, this whole one-to-many template model powered by faster and cheaper AI means these tools are becoming more accessible every single day, which leaves us with one final thought. Now that you know how the magic trick is done, if you could design your very own viral AI effect, what would you create? Thanks for tuning in.